What's up, Nightmare Nerds? I'm Josh, and welcome to the Nightmare Network presentation of New Nightmare, a spoiler-free podcast where we discuss new and notable horror. On today's episode, we're looking at the science fiction horror dreamscape that has come true. On paper, screenwriter and director Anthony Scott Burns' film seemed like the perfect fit for the Nightmare Network, but as you'll hear, this one didn't totally live up to our expectations, though there were plenty of creepy moments and neat visuals throughout. Come True follows the sleep-deprived teenage runaway Sarah Dunn, played by Julia Sarah Stone, whose recurring nightmares start to affect her day-to-day life. She eventually enrolls herself in a university sleep study, hoping for some assistance and relief, but does it help? Look, I already told you I'm not here to spoil the damn movie. Let's get to it.
All right, so Josh is fresh off of a viewing of Come True, and we didn't talk that much about it so far, which is good because we're going to save most of the discussion for what's happening right now on the podcast. However, I did text him immediately after I got his initial response, and I want to read you the exact text that I sent Josh, because it was what I had planned to be the first words on this podcast. So, my words were, "What a literal waste of a great setup for what could have been the worst ending I've ever seen, being in no way hyperbolic." So, Josh, would you like to address that initial reaction that I had to this movie?
That spicy take. Another spicy take from Mike Hayden. I didn't love it and I didn't hate it. I'm kind of somewhere in between there. I was sort of lukewarm about it. And I think it's funny that you hated the ending. I didn't hate the ending, but I didn't love a lot of what led up to the ending.
So, yeah, it seems like we have a bit of opposite takes. So, I mean, initially, I enjoyed the film. Well, here's the thing. I don't like the other part of it because the ending made no sense. I mean, it actually makes perfect sense, which is why it's dumb, because most of the rest of the movie doesn't make any sort of sense. And if you really think about it, and then you're like, I can't wait to find out like what is going to make all of these things come together, because there's got to be something. And then they get there and they're like, no, it's actually none of it makes sense at all. So now that I know that none of it makes sense and it's not supposed to make sense, I don't like the whole thing, which is a shame because it was really cool. Like, I thought it was really cool. I'm flustered, to say the least.
Let me ask you this then. Before you eventually hated the entire film after some thought afterwards,
right?
What was it about the film itself? Like, what were some of the elements that you enjoyed before you hated it?
Sure. So, if you guys aren't familiar with Come True, and again, that's why we do these New Nightmares, the whole premise is that we follow this young teenage runaway. She has nowhere to sleep, so she finds a poster, and she goes to this clinic that's doing trials on sleep study, and she's like, oh great, they're gonna pay me to sleep here for 2 months. I'm a runaway. What a great setup. As a plot device, that's a great setup. Love it. It turns out like the sci-fi aspect of this film is that these scientists have developed a method that it's like a cap that goes on your brain, and it's able to project onto monitors what you're thinking, right? And so like it's supposed to act like as a digital version of your eyes. So they want to apply that to sleep studies and the creepier parts of the film, which is sleep paralysis, which I thought those sequences were pretty terrifying. What I enjoyed about this was, number one, that's a great premise. Liked it. Number two, the acting was just a little bit bad, which kind of made me enjoy it more, because it made me feel like I was watching a dude doing what we're doing, right? Like, he had an idea for a movie and he was just like, let's go grab some people who are willing to be in it. No offense to that. Like, they were good. It's not like they weren't bad performances. I guess their performances make a little more sense now that I know the end. But so at different points in the film, you get these really great push dollies through what we are to assume is these characters' subconsciouses, right? And it's kind of a projection of their fears, there are different chapter points in each title screens to give chapters to the film, and one of them is the shadow, and so it's you automatically know, okay, they're reflecting on what scares us as humans. They're pushing that into a reality, and they want to take that shadow and bring it into the self, which is what the last title card is. It's a very interesting pace. We keep seeing these flashes. Eventually things are starting to eke their way into the real world. And I'm fascinated because I'm like, then at the end they bring us to, we try to keep it spoiler free here, but there's only so much I can do for this one. They bring you to this like temple of the subconscious, and I'm just so excited to see what's inside of it. And then something else happens where a phone that had disappeared earlier in the film makes its comeback at the same moment. And it's like this is the key to unlocking everything that's going to happen. And then once those two plot points touch, and if you're Josh, you see me on video touching my two fingers together. Once they touch, the whole movie just falls apart because it was never supposed to make sense. And it's really frustrating to me as a viewer. So Josh, what did you not like what I don't like, but now we're on the same page because we both know the ending? Like how did you feel about it?
I don't think my feelings are as strong as yours about the ending, to be honest.
We don't spend enough time unpacking Sarah, the main character. We don't spend enough time unpacking her subconscious to even figure out why this is all relevant, right? Like questions that came up that I wanted answered was like, why does she run away from home? Why doesn't she want to be there?
Yeah.
And I thought these figures in her subconscious were going to be, it would have been a cliche, but some sort of abusive figure that she's running away from, right? And I thought that's where it was going to go. Even if it didn't, that's how this is set up. So what's even, there's no point now because none of it was relevant. So that's where I'm at right now. I feel very frustrated.
I do agree with you that Sarah, and I think Sarah's performance was actually quite good. I actually really liked her in this role. She plays she plays a tired person really well.
I mean, and we would know because we are exhausted.
Oh, so fucking tired. Yeah. She's a runaway. There's no spoiler there, but we don't get a whole lot of backstory into like what her relationship is with her mom. She doesn't seem to have a very good relationship with her mom. You don't really find out why.
And at the end, it wasn't just a like we made it mysterious on purpose. It was we made it not matter at all. I thought the dream, quote unquote, dream sequences were very well done, very, very terrifying. I was hoping for kind of like an Empty Man kind of vibe at the end where things kind of start to merge together with those two realities. Unfortunately, that didn't really happen. And then there was at the very end, there's this like double twist. Like it's a fake out twist. And then they wait 30 seconds to twist you again, which I also thought was very, very odd. So yeah, again, we're coming back to this. I'm frustrated with the ending. Josh doesn't seem to care that much, but I don't know. That's my take. That's my hot take.
Yeah,
hot take on a hot day.
Yeah, it's very hot here. You're right. The subconscious stuff is really cool. It reminded me a little bit. Was Tool around? Was Tool big when you were growing up? Tool videos. Yeah. A little bit reminiscent of like Tool videos. A little bit reminiscent of the Upside Down and Stranger Things. A little bit like Pan's Labyrinth.
Don't compare it to that. That's a good movie.
Visually, as a movie, it's nowhere near.
Let's keep
Labyrinth.
These two names as far apart as we can on this
fair
podcast.
Enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
This thing, and also this movie did a thing that a lot of movies seem to be doing nowadays that also drive me bonkers. I'm sick of movies acting like the 80s are happening in the 2020s when they should just put the movie in the 80s. This would be a perfect like vessel for that. But also I guess that also makes sense if we're well, not really, because that would be 20 years ago. So that would be what, 2000? It's weird to me because like with this movie, another movie that comes to mind is It Follows, where it has these 80s vibes to it, very like the color scheme, music choices. This felt like an 80s movie with iPhones, and it's a weird trend that's happening. And this, like I said, this would have been a perfect vessel for like an 80s movie because we have all these kind of retro futuristic takes on technology where like the scans coming through of the visions are very like VHS-y. So I thought it would be cool if they just set it there. But it seems like movies nowadays have a very like, we're gonna make this the 80s even though it's 2021. Like, I don't know, do you pick up on that at all?
Full-on retro futuristic vibe throughout this whole film, and I think mostly due to the fact that the score is so retro. I think Stranger Things kind of turned the table on what that kind of looks and feels like, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but at least that takes place in the 80s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think Drive also got really popular with film kids, and now all the people that like Drive want to make like the now 80s movie, you know? And it's just such a weird kind of direction that this is going. Another thing that really bothered me about this movie, aside from the fact that nothing made sense, was so this main character, her name's, I'm really hoping you agree with this, because this is like, I couldn't stop thinking about this to the point where there is a line of dialogue that they had to address before something else could happen. There is the main character, her name is Sarah. She goes to high school but is a runaway, and for some reason her mom can't find her, even though she goes to school every day, which I guess is part of why nothing makes sense. And she goes to the sleep study, she sleeps there or whatever. This dude who is clearly like a post-grad, at least 28-year-old, is like falling in love with this high school student. And I thought it was the weirdest thing I had ever seen in a movie like that. It was so odd, to the point where they're about to do it and she's like, "Don't worry, I'm 18." Like even the filmmakers knew it was weird. They had to throw in a little thing to make us okay with it. I thought it was so weird.
This is one thing that we can agree on 100%. I thought the love story was atrocious.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Cringeworthy.
Yep.
and it, when they first are sort of like falling for each other, it's just like this weird montage with an awful song set to it.
Yeah.
It was just bad, man.
The scenario is so creepy. Like it's like this awful song is trying to make us like, he ends up falling asleep, she's watching his dreams, and they're doing it in his dreams, and she's also a vampire. And just by the way, and like, it's so like they're doing it to make it feel like it's like, oh, it's a sweet moment, but it's so creepy.
It's really bad.
A lot of highs and lows in this movie, which is like, as I was watching it, I was enjoying it. Like I really did, mostly because I thought it was going somewhere, and then you find out it's not, and it's just like, well, I guess what I thought I was enjoying, I wasn't really enjoying, which is a. Man, that's quite a take. I spent money on this too. That's a.
Yeah, you bought it, didn't you?
I bought it.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rented
Classic
it. So.
Mike.
Let's turn positive for a moment here.
I'll try.
I think that we need to give some credit to the overall tone of the film. I think is really well done. It sets a mood really, really well. As we said, the visuals for the subconscious level are great. Don't watch this movie during the day though, which is the mistake I made.
Yeah, you probably could barely see anything. I watched half of it last night and was just so tired, and then I think I got most of them out of the way last night, which was good. And then I woke up this morning and finished it, and you didn't spend too much time there in the last like half hour. But like I said, the setup is fantastic. The concept of this film as a whole was great, which is why we wanted to talk about it, right? Because this is Nightmare Network. We're fascinated with both ours and your nightmares, and this movie came out that's about nightmares, right? And so, and you know, I've always been fascinated with like Jung's collective unconscious and the things that we share in our collective unconscious that's brought out during these nightmares when we when we sleep in our subconscious. That's when we process this information. And you know, and there is some things about that where the head scientist dude talks about how, you know, everybody has the shadow, right? It's like the shadow with eyes is a figure that is all across different cultures. It's something that we share in our human collective unconscious, and they want to find out why. And I'm on the other end of this, being like, I want to know why too. Please tell me why. And they're like, actually, none of this is. It's not even about nightmares anymore. Like it's frustrating.
One thing that did pop into my head, and we talked about in our found footage podcast, we talked about what is sort of the next iteration of found footage, and you brought up a great idea, which was a virtual reality found footage film. And I got some real virtual reality vibes from this film in terms of how they put the things on their head, how we're seeing from their perspective.
There's a pretty big scene where someone's sleepwalking and they're showing what they're seeing on these monitors while they're sleepwalking, and it was so cool. And I just feel like there's so many swings and misses. Like there were so many good opportunities for a solid explanation, and it just doesn't happen. So I'm not the kind of person that needs a solidified ending to something. Like I appreciate ambiguity, but this one just really also the scientist at Riff, right? He is such a bad scientist that did not pass IRB training at all, violates so many human decency acts during his research.
Yeah, and one of the people, no, this is no spoiler either, but one of the people who were involved in the sleep study just like up and leaves.
Yeah.
And Sarah keeps asking about her, and they're like, oh, I don't know, I guess she just left.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second, you can't.
Yeah.
You gotta keep tabs on these people. What if,
It's true.
Anyway.
But also, another thing that didn't matter.
Another thing that didn't matter.
The whole time I'm just like, where's this girl? I'm like, don't worry,
her friend?
Her friend
Another thing that doesn't matter.
Nope.
Does she work at that nightclub Anyway.
Who knows? Yeah. Who cares? The
we're getting into spoilers.
The filmmakers clearly don't. So, if you're anything like me, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Here's the thing. I feel like we both agree that some really good ideas were put out there.
Yes.
And sometimes it's really difficult to wrap up a story when you have those good ideas in place.
This kind of reminded me of a movie that we had both seen. We talked about doing a New Nightmare about, but you didn't want to because you didn't like it. The Dark and the Wicked. It kind of reminded me of that in the sense that the ending to The Dark and the Wicked is very existential, and it's a nothing matters kind of ending in the sense that even the things that we do that are important don't matter because death consumes us all. And this was a nothing matters because it never happened kind of a vibe. It's not specifically that. You're still going to be and it's not even like it's clued in very well. Like you're all going to be shocked. Even with all of the shit talking we're doing, you will be shocked beyond belief because it's not like they build up to this reveal. It's just like a staple at the end, which is also why I dislike Hereditary, which is I'm sure we're going to get into that at some time very soon because the ending of that feels like a staple that they just put on. That's where I'm at with this. I recommend it mostly because I want to know what you guys think. If I'm crazy, go ahead and watch it and see if you feel like you wasted a million hours of your life because I don't know at this point.
To our listeners, Mike doesn't like Hereditary.
I do not know.
You might like Come True. So let's just leave it at that. Because a lot of people like Hereditary. Mike's not a fan. So that's what's great about film, though. The film is subjective, right? Go give it a try.
So thanks for joining us on this New Nightmare. Josh, are you going to hit the recommend button or no?
I would say I don't like to not recommend films just because I maybe didn't love it. So I will recommend it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say give it a watch and talk with us in the comments because I want to know what you guys think. This is how I felt. I obviously feel very strongly. But you're going to get some cool stuff, for sure. It's just about whether or not you think that ending is earned, and I, for one, don't. So thank you guys so much for joining us on this New Nightmare. We will scare you later.
Thanks for listening to the Nightmare Network podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't be afraid to give us suggestions on movies that spook you out for our next episode. You can visit nightmarenetworkofficial.com to submit your own nightmare to be adapted into a short film on our YouTube channel. As always, at Nightmare Network, you share your scares.